One of the most common questions I hear from students is, what should I be practicing next on my flute? It can feel really overwhelming to know what you should be working on for your level. And the words here, for your level, are really important, because if you're playing things that are too easy, you're not going to grow. And if you're playing things that are too difficult, well, you're also not going to grow. So today we're going to walk through my piece recommendations for every single level on the flute, starting from the very beginning all the way up to very advanced. Hi everybody, my name is Tatiana. This is the Flute Practice, a space that offers clear and impactful teaching on your flute journey. A huge thank you to Tomplay for sponsoring this video. If you've ever wished you could play along with an accompanist anytime you want, then Tomplay is a game changer. It gives you interactive sheet music and high quality backing tracks that you can play along with from your computer or your phone. Not only does it have thousands of pieces of flute music on it, but it allows you to do things like slow it down or loop over tricky sections, or even play with different instruments. Tomplay makes practice more musical, more fun, and honestly, I use this app with almost all of my students and love to use it myself sometimes and have some fun. For those who already have Tomplay, this list is going to include pieces that are on Tomplay, so you can jump right in and get learning. For those of you who do not yet have Tomplay, well, we've dropped a link down below, so don't delay. Go and sign up for your Tomplay subscription today. With that, let's jump in to our list. Our first level, of course, is our absolute beginner. The absolute beginner has just started the flute. You may have learned your first 3 notes already. You've certainly kind of found your tone. You're settling your tone. You've got the basics of tonguing and breathing in place. But this is most likely going to be one of the first pieces, if not the first piece, that you learn on the flute. Now, as much as I've tried to get away from it, I do tend to teach things like Mary Had a Little Lamb first. I know, it's just a really good piece to start with because everybody knows it and it's easy, but that's actually not my top pick for this level. There is a really lovely little piece called Au clair de la lune, or French folk song, which is available on Tomplay, and it is so beautiful to play. I mean, about as beautiful as a piece can get with 3 notes, right? I love to teach this piece as a way to not only get more comfortable with the first 3 notes, but also establish the tone. And because there is a little bit of a note jump in there, it usually presents a little bit of a challenge for absolute beginners. Other great pieces I teach at this level: Lightly Row, also available on Tomplay, and another nice piece called Fireflies. By the way, we are providing you guys with a full repertoire list. You can go click down below and get that list with all the links to the Tomplay versions of this. And in case you don't want to get Tomplay, we're also going to include some versions on free websites like Flute Tunes. Now, I've added in an extra little category here, and in fact, I find at the beginning of the flute journey, it helps to have more categories, not less. So we've got quite a few coming up. But by the time you get to the end of that beginner phase, you're usually fairly comfortable with the first octave to 1.5 octaves on the flute. So usually from around the low E up till around the A to B and up to that C, although yes, that B and C on the flute at this stage still feels really uncomfortable for many of you. Your tone won't be super consistent yet. There's still lots of work to do, so don't be too perturbed by that. But you can get stuck into this really beautiful piece of music by Japanese composer Rentaro Taki called The Moon Over the Ruined Castle. Go ahead and play it. I love teaching this piece of music. It's a really great one to start learning about basic phrasing, to start expanding your breathing, and learning a little bit about the dotted rhythm. I usually use this as a nice introduction to this rhythm. Other really great options here, there's a really wonderful German folk song called Can You Count the Stars? It's really pretty. And then of course the very famous Speed Bonnie Boat, also sometimes called the Highlander Boat Song, which depending on the version can be great for this level. Again, a lovely little dotted rhythm challenge. We move on to the next level, which is the late beginner level. Yes, we have got an absolute beginner, a beginner, and a late beginner level in this video because anyway, we're going to get into that whole discussion, but there is a big gap between beginner and intermediate. By the way, we have a whole rubric of these levels that you can go check out and go through all these different kind of parameters individually to figure out your level as well. You guessed it, it's dropped down below. There's a lot of interesting goodies in our description box in this video, so go check it out. At this level, you're usually getting more comfortable with that mid-register B to C. We're going to start learning the high register D at this level. Well, I will start introducing scales in that beginner level, so we will start learning our C major, F major, G major. At this level, we are taking our scales a little bit more seriously. We're learning those scales, we're understanding those scales, and we're starting to add the minors. A wonderful piece for this level is the Brahms Cradle Song, the very famous Brahms Cradle Song. I find this can be quite a challenge for students. Rhythmically, there's a lot going on, even though it's a very, very well-known tune. But I like using well-known tunes to teach complex rhythms because it helps you to understand those rhythms just that much better. This piece is also really great for tone. There's some lovely interval jumps in there for you to work on and practice. A definite must play for this level. I know, by the way, we're only playing a few seconds of each of these pieces. We've actually popped a playlist down below with me playing most, if not all of these pieces. So you can go down and just put on that playlist just now and just enjoy listening to it. Other great pieces to learn here, the very famous Gymnopédie by Eric Satie. Yes, that one. And of course, the Aquarium by Saint-Saëns. Absolutely gorgeous melody. So this is where things start to get a little bit tricky on our journey. And I have racked my brains for names for this level. And the best term that we have for this right now is the term developing, because you're not a beginner. That seems weird to call you a beginner at this stage. You've usually been playing for a year or two. You're also not an intermediate player. Like if you look at intermediate stuff, it's way too difficult. So what do we call you? Well, if you have any bright ideas, you can comment down below. I like the term developing. It has a sense of progression. It has a sense of movement forward, but also no expectation of you to be at a super high level yet. Your developing player is starting to explore into the higher registers. We're usually learning E, F, and G. You're fairly comfortable with the first 2 octaves on the flute. You're playing those low Cs. They're still not very strong and clear, but they're getting there. You're learning your scales up to 2 sharps and 2 flats. So we're including that B flat major and G minor and D major and B minor. You're probably also starting to explore some melodic minors. Take a deep breath if you have no idea what that is. We have some videos on scales. We're here to help. And your tone is starting to stabilize really nicely. But of course, there are still areas on the flute like the really high registers and the low registers that are very inconsistent and still quite weak. Don't worry, it's normal. One of the big hallmarks of this level is that you're starting to be able to extend your breath. So you're playing longer and longer phrases in one breath. And the piece that I absolutely love teaching for this exact reason is The Swan by Saint-Saëns. It is just such a gorgeous piece of music. Number one, probably 90% of you recognize it. It's just so iconic. But it really helps students to get this understanding of the breadth of phrasing. Yes, in this level, we're usually starting to understand dynamics and phrasing, at least the basics of it. So it's a fabulous opportunity to learn this. By the way, we have a learning program that teaches you through all these different pieces of music at all of these different levels, along with hundreds of other pieces. We teach you your scales, we give you the right technical exercises for your levels. I explain to you the fundamentals of tone and breathing and everything else you need to play the flute well. You get a comprehensive resource with everything you need to practice in one space, and if I dare say so myself, one of the coolest communities that are just rallying around each other and supporting each other on this journey. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, I'd love to learn this piece, but I have no idea where to start, I'm going to highly recommend that you go check out our programs. We don't keep them open all year round. We usually start them in classes. I believe we're about to open a class. So you want to go and join that waiting list so long so that when we open those doors, you can sign up and become part of our amazing community. Other really wonderful pieces to learn in the developing level, the very famous Bach Minuet in G. If you are on Tomplay, I just want to say that I prefer the violin version, which is actually in G major. There is an F major version, but I find it's a little easier in G major. So in Tomplay, you're just going to go to the violin tab, tick on the violin instead of the flute and go and find the minuet in G there. I do this from time to time when I prefer the violin versions of stuff, which does happen. Another really wonderful piece is To a Wild Rose by McDowell. This is particularly great because it's a piece in A major, which is a new key that you tend to learn at this level, and it happens to just be really gorgeous and beautiful. Yeah, you might notice I have a little bit of a tendency to find all the beautiful, pretty pieces, but I mean, we're playing the flute because it's pretty, right? So I'm okay with that. So just like we had our late beginner, we have got a late developing level as well. Yes, there are lots of levels, but my friends, you will thank me when you start realizing that you make these small little incremental steps that help you progress. I have had students on the wrong level, just one wrong level, like one up from where they should be, and they've been making no progress or very little progress. We put them down into the right level and they just soar, they just go for it. So the reason I keep adding levels is because it's just so helpful. At the late developing, you're really just building on what you did in the developing. You're getting quite comfortable with that third register G. You might even be starting to explore the high A. We start getting more comfortable with your keys in 3 sharps and 3 flats. So you're starting to play with these more. And just in general, your tone is getting more solid, your articulation's getting faster, your fingers are also starting to move a bit quicker. I mean, this starts happening progressively through the levels, but it prepares you to be able to play this absolutely beautiful piece of music by Vivaldi. Yes, that's right. You can finally play the Largo from Vivaldi's Four Seasons from Winter, which I'm sure many of you know. I mean, just listen to this. It's in the key of E flat major, 3 flats, so a nice opportunity to practice that key. You start understanding a little bit more about the Baroque style, about performance practice of this time, and just getting into a little bit more nuance around the music. And what's really exciting about this level is that we really start to hear some beautiful phrasing coming through. When I've taught students this particular piece of music and hear the end result, especially through our learning programs where I'm not listening to them playing it every week, I honestly sometimes just fall off my chair because I'm amazed at the amazing steps forward that students make during this phase. The piece also helps you work on your tone. We introduce you to some nice trills that at least some of them you will start to play. And I just think it's going to be a really musically satisfying experience. So if you're at this level, I'm very excited for you to start learning this. Other great pieces you might want to explore. Man, there's so much cool stuff at this level. We've got things like the Bach Arioso. Again, I actually recommend the violin version on Tomplay for this. I think it's nicer. We've got the Telemann Minuet in A minor. Also a really great piece, wonderful for practicing articulations and starting to get those fingers moving a little bit. And another real big favorite is the Pavane by Fauré. I've actually got a version that's in a duet in A major. Tomplay's got a slightly different version that is a little bit more tricky because it goes up to the high B flat. But in principle, if you can play the slightly lower version, this is a really fun piece to start playing at this level. And then finally, we're heading into that intermediate level. That's right. We call this the early intermediate level. So we're still at the beginning here. Probably one of my absolute all-time favorite levels because boy, oh boy, is there a massive shift in this level. So in this level, what I'm really looking out for as a teacher is this concept of the tone dropping. And this usually happens when students start really getting a good understanding of breathing, of this mystical idea of support, of this free and released rib movement. And we start getting this kind of rounding out, deepening, fattening up of the sound, and very often a little bit of natural vibrato starting to come through. And yes, you still have your struggles. You're still struggling with the very high notes. You're at least starting to play up to the high A and B flat by this stage, maybe even that high B in that third octave. But your low notes are starting to come along better. Your fingers are starting to move. You're starting to learn your scales up to 4 sharps and flats, ideally, at least somewhere close to that, and just generally getting more comfortable with the instrument. The pieces you're learning are going to get longer and more complex, so you're probably going to learn them a little bit slower. But for that, we have got some really fun pieces, and a piece that for me always feels like a bit of a coming of age moment or milestone moment on your flute journey is the Bach Siciliano from his sonata in E flat major. We've actually got a separate course just teaching this piece. So if you want to just learn this piece and you don't necessarily want to join one of our programs, you can actually go down below. We've put a link to it. This piece is so great for tone, of course, as always. For rhythm and counting, there's some fairly complex rhythms that are really great to teach at this level. It's also really great for phrasing and teaching Baroque style, where you really start to understand some of the performance practice aspects of this period. But you're also going to be challenged with breathing and fingers, and just all round, it is a really wonderful piece to learn. I think it's been on the grade 4 Royal Schools and Trinity lists probably for about the last, I don't know, 50 years. For those of you who don't know these grade levels, we've been showing them in the screen with each of the levels. These are the Trinity or Royal Schools. They have these kind of graded systems from grade 1 to 8 that are traditionally done in England and, well, many of its colonies, I'd say, certainly here in South Africa. So we've done our best to match up these level systems to these grades for those of you who know them. So yes, early intermediate, we're at around a grade 4 level. Other really great pieces for this level are things like the Pavan to a Dead Princess by Ravel. It's so beautiful. A piece like the Debussy Reverie, also absolutely gorgeous piece of music. We have some fun movements from Handel sonatas. For example, the last movement of his F major sonata. And I've also taught some other easy movement from Bach sonatas like the Bach sonata in C major. You're going to notice a pattern here that the further along on the levels we go, the more amazing music there is to play. It just gets better and better. So if that's not a little bit of inspiration for those of you who are right at the beginning or in those beginning levels, then I don't know what is. Our next level, you are now officially an intermediate player. You are playing quite comfortably up to the 3rd octave B flat. B, you're kind of starting to explore that B perhaps. You're starting to learn your scales up to 5 sharps and flats. Yes, that's right. Nice and challenging. You might be starting to learn things like some dominant 7ths as well. We're adding that to the mix. By the way, I haven't mentioned them, but all this while you're pretty much practicing chromatic scales. Basically, probably from that late beginner phase onward. I teach this very early. It's an important scale. Don't ignore it. In the intermediate level is when I start formally teaching vibrato. Usually, sometimes I do this a little bit earlier, sometimes later. For me, it usually depends on when I start to hear that sound kind of drop, when I get that rounding out of the tone. But certainly in our programs, we have a formal training on vibrato at this stage. This opens up a whole bunch of doors for you. You can start playing with more expression. The tone usually gets richer and fuller, and boy, oh boy, does the music start to become satisfying. So this would be about a grade 5 level, since we're continuing on to our levels. Basically, every level is going to be a different grade level in those exam systems from now on. So honestly, when I had to choose a piece for this, I struggled. I was going backwards and forwards between the Forêt Sicilienne, which is so gorgeous and so beautiful, and the very iconic Dance of the Blessed Spirits. And I finally decided to land on the Dance of the Blessed Spirits because this piece I wanted to play since I could barely play the flute at all. I had an old CD recording from my teacher at the time, and I remember just hearing this piece and just being mesmerized by it. All I wanted to do was play it. The Dance of the Blessed Spirits is such a great piece to teach rhythm. It's got some really complex looking rhythms, and when you break them down, you realize they're actually fairly simple. Musically, it's challenging. There is a lot that needs to happen in terms of the phrasing and the shaping. It's challenging for breathing and for ornamentation, but for all its challenges, the rewards are huge because it is so incredibly satisfying and beautiful to play. This piece will also turn you into a subdivision master, and if you don't know what that is, well, then join our program and come and learn it with us because it'll really teach you how to subdivide. There are so many wonderful pieces for this level. Some of my top choices, obviously I mentioned already, the Forêt Sicilienne, so beautiful. We also have gorgeous pieces like The Fog is Lifting by Nielsen, quite a fun little Baroque piece, La Basque by Marin Marais, the Chanson des Mateux by Algar, and I'll often throw in slightly more meaty movements of the Bach and Handel sonatas. So for example, the Bach E-flat major sonata, the first movement, students can usually start approaching this, or the Handel F major sonata is also very commonly on these exam lists. We're coming out of the intermediate and going into our late intermediate phase. By this stage, we are expecting you to get up to that high B really comfortably. A lot of the pieces in this level have got high Bs in them, so you better know them. But we are already pushing you into that fourth octave C. Yes, there's a fourth octave C. If you didn't know that, now you know. By this stage, you're comfortably playing all your scales up to 5 sharps and flats. But we are starting to introduce the final one with the 6 sharps and flats to you as well, so that by this stage you will have learned all your majors and minors. Again, we're adding more complex scales like your dominant sevenths and diminished. We expect you to be fairly comfortable with things like scales and thirds at this point. Your technique is coming along, your fingers are starting to move quite fast, and you're going to need it for the repertoire that is coming up. Because the Gorbert madrigal, while looking fairly simple at first, really catches students out, and you need to have a good grasp of your scales and fairly agile fingers, especially for that middle section. It's also great though for dynamics and phrasing and tone color and just nuanced use of your vibrato. And can we just talk about how beautiful the piano part is in this? Some other great choices for this level: Couplet, André Couplet, I know, spelled Caplet. Unknown piece, but his Reverie is so beautiful. I love working through this piece with students. Bach Sonata in G minor, another really great choice. And a whole bunch of the movement from Bloch's Suite Modal is also a really fun thing to work on at this level. There are actually a lot of really cool pieces once you hit this sort of late intermediate grade 6 level. So you'll have some work to do, but it'll be fun. We're at our advanced level. Whew, I'm getting tired. By the way, of course, these levels are happening over multiple years, right? This is a journey. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. So once again, if you're still with me and you're like at the beginning stages, well, I'm proud of you for sticking it out. But also just know you'll get there. You'll get there. How do I know this? Because I've actually seen students get there. I have literally seen a student in her mid-50s start the flute from scratch. Didn't play a note in her life. Going all the way up. She's currently at a grade 8 level, which is where we're about to get to. So that's like a very advanced level within a couple of years. It's possible, my friends. It's possible. Okay, a little bit of a pep talk over. Let's get back into it. Our next level is the advanced level. Yeah, you've made it to the advanced level. This is more or less that grade 7 level. In this level, you are comfortably playing up to the 3rd octave B and that 4th octave C. Yes, that's right. I mean, it's still a little scary up there, but you're getting there. Your fingers are starting to move really nicely. That's one of the things we start seeing. And in fact, the fingers start moving so much that we have to start learning something called double tonguing, which is a kind of tonguing that we use when we start to play things that are really fast and tongued, and we cannot use single tonguing, 2-2-2, we have to use 2-2-2-2-2. I sometimes already teach this in the previous level. So when we're looking at that like late intermediate stage, but by the latest, in this advanced level, you're going to need it. You're also probably comfortable with all your majors and minors. You've added some thirds and diminished and dominants and all of that, maybe even a whole tone scale. And of course, you're not forgetting about the chromatics. One of the big hallmarks in this level is that you just have this incredible palette of possibilities in your craftsmanship. So you can use vibrato and tone colors and dynamics and phrasing and all these lovely expressive tools to paint a gorgeous musical picture. And this is where music starts to become so satisfying. And I find that students start deepening their sense of musical understanding and sense of musicianship at this level. Not that you're not always doing this, because you are, but it's a lot to look forward to is all I'm saying. And of course, the pieces are accordingly beautiful. And my top pick for this level is 2 movements from the Godard suite. Yes, a Godard. And that is the Allegretto, which is the first movement, and the Idille, which is the second movement. Both of them really quite challenging, sometimes often put on the grade 6 lists, and I think it's misplaced. They are challenging pieces. I like to teach them at the end of that grade 6 or the end of the late intermediate level rather, or into this advanced level. lots of fantastic finger work, gorgeous phrasing, tone color, vibrato work, expression work, so much to do in this piece of music. And it's long and substantial, so it will take you a little bit of time to learn these pieces, so be patient. Some other fun options though. We've got the Poulenc Cantilena, which is the second movement of the Poulenc Sonata. So simple looking, so challenging to play. We've got the Forêt, the Morceau, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, Morceau des Concours. My French friends, do not come and find me. But basically it's just a competition piece that was composed by Forêt. It looks really challenging and it's the opposite. It's actually really not that difficult, but very fun to play, very satisfying. We have the Bach Sonata, the E minor, usually just the first movement of that sonata or the third. The third is gorgeous. And you can probably take your pick of most of the Handel sonatas and play them with a fair amount of ease. There are also things like Blavet sonata. Man, there is so much music for this level. The other really notable piece that I like to add here is the Mozart Andante in C. Oh, it's so pretty. We move up to the very advanced level. Yeah, I didn't want to call this late advanced. That seemed a little bit like tautologous. Late advanced, I don't know. So very advanced it is, and this is what we would refer to as our grade 8 level. I mean, these are just really advanced players, right? They've got fairly even sound through all the registers. Their fingers are moving fairly fast. They're kind of double tonguing at around 120 beats per minute, more or less. It might be a little slower, but faster. They've got a good sense of phrasing and shaping and dynamics and vibrato and. A fun piece to learn at this level is the first movement of the Poulenc Sonata. It's tricky. It's tricky. There's double tonguing in it. There's lots of dynamics and phrasing in it. There's some nasty little sections in it. And it's quite fun because you could even pair it up with the second movement, which was from our previous grade level. So that's fun. Wait a little bit for that third movement. It's a bit of a nightmare. It often feels like this really momentous occasion when you start learning this piece. Again, that student I was telling you about that started from the very beginning, she's started learning this piece and she's playing it pretty well. And she's not even my only student. I've seen other students that are also starting in their 40s, 50s, 60s and actually really progressing to a fairly advanced level. So again, you can do it. I believe in you. Other really fun pieces for this level, the Mozart concertos, a great chance to start learning some of those. We've got a whole bunch of Bach sonatas, whether it's the E minor, the C major, the E major. The sky's the limit here. We've got things like the Hindemith Sonata, which is quite fun to play. We could even do things like the Reinecke Ballade or the Mio Sonatina, and I'm throwing beautiful big words at you, but if you don't know any of these pieces, go check out our lists and go and explore them if you're at this level. Or just go listen to them. They're beautiful. They're beautiful to listen to. And then, my friends, ta-da! Our final level. I call this the virtuoso level. And here, my friends, is where you start learning the Chaminade Concertina. I don't know why everybody always wants to play that. Okay, no, it's beautiful. I totally get it. You got a long way to go. You can see why if you've ever tried to pick up this piece and learn it, you felt completely out of your depth and overwhelmed, because there is a whole list of levels that need to happen in between before you get to this admittedly gorgeous and iconic piece of music. So there it is. Now you know what to practice. Again, a huge thank you to Tomplay for sponsoring this video. Go get yourself a Tomplay subscription down below. And if you would like to learn these pieces, join one of our learning programs and let us help you get to that Chaminade Concertina one day. Happy practicing, and you might want to go and check out this lovely playlist of some other beautiful pieces on Tomplay to go and listen to now.